everyone, I'm Jacqueline from Pudgy Cat Games. Today we are going to be doing a review of Magical Unicorn Quest from Flame Point Games. Yes, another cat-themed board game company. We are very excited about this. Today we're going to do a brief overview of what's in the box, a little tutorial on how to play, and our thoughts. So stay tuned if you are interested in learning more. So first up, we have Magical Unicorn Quest. It is a game for ages 8 and up, for 2 to 6 players, and it plays in about 20 minutes. In Magical Unicorn Quest, you are going on a journey through the magical forest in hopes of finding a golden unicorn and a majestic unicorn. Get them into your stable first, and you are the winner. However, your journey is not going to be as easy as it seems. There are lots of other creatures out in the forest. Some are friends, some are foes, and they are going to either help or hinder you in your quest to find these majestic unicorns. This game is really a lot of fun. It involves some quality take that elements, a little bit of maybe some engine building, card management, but it's really pretty lightweight. It's easy to pick up and learn, as you'll see as we're going through the tutorial. And we had a lot of fun playing it, and we hope that you will enjoy this tutorial as well as the game too. So let's see what's inside the box. All right. So first up, we have our instructions. As I mentioned, it is pretty quick to pick up, so there's not too many things that you need to know. We have a nice introduction about what it's like to be going on this Magical Unicorn Quest. As I mentioned, how to win includes getting both of those unicorns into your stable. If at any point you do this, you win the game automatically. So there are 40 mystical being cards, 20 mystical potion cards, 15 mystical magic cards, 6 reference cards. Personal favorite of mine. I love when games include reference cards. I think it makes it so much easier for new players to pick up on how to play without needing to reference the rulebook over and over again. And I think Magical Unicorn Quest did a great job with making the reference cards easy to understand and very helpful. Keywords, these are the things that you're going to need typically to know as you're playing the game. Things like abilities, discard, what the discard pile is, what the forest deck is, hand, species, and stable. For the rest of this guide, it includes the setup, table setup, the different card types, unicorn variant, and what's inside the magical forest itself. We are going to kind of walk through this together as we walk through the first couple rounds of the game. So let's start by talking about how to get set up. So I'm going to move everything out of the way at this point, and we're just going to use the cards. So you can see I'm going to set up a 2-player variant just for the sake of table space, but remember you can play with up to 6. So first up, everybody gets one of these handy dandy reference cards. I'm going to pull one up so that way you can kind of see what's on it. Okay. Hopefully you're able to read that. But basically this goes over an overview of your turn. On a player's turn, they're first going to draw a card. If you have no cards in your hand, you're going to actually draw 2 cards, so that way you always will have at least 2 options. And then you're going to take actions. What's really cool with Magical Unicorn Quest is there's 4 different actions you can take on a turn. You can take as many of those actions as you would like, however, and you can do them in whatever order you choose. In some actions, such as the play a magic item card, you can actually play more than 1 card at a time. So while it might originally seem like you can only play 3 cards at once, some things will allow you to actually play more. After you take your actions, you will do your end turn, which means if you have more than 7 cards, you will discard down to 7, and the play will pass on to the next player. Another really awesome thing about Magical Unicorn Quest is the on your opponent's turn. As you can see here, there are actually actions that you can take on your opponent's turn. I love any time a game gives you an option to do something on an opponent's turn besides just sit there and wait for your turn to come back around. What's really cool in this game is there's a bunch of cards that allow you to do things like halt a player from playing your card and just stop actions from happening. So it gives you a real incentive in order to kind of be focused on the game even when it's not your turn. It makes the time in between turns go a lot faster, and it keeps everybody involved throughout the entire game rather than just half the game or a quarter of the game when it's actually that player's turn. And it's cool because if you have more than 2 people playing, you can both be taking actions on somebody else's turn. So you might not have the card that you initially need in order to stop somebody, but another opponent might, and maybe what they play helps you out, or vice versa. So there's a lot of different cool things that you're able to do throughout the game, not just on your own turn. So before we get started, I do just want to show you the 2 different unicorns that you'll be looking for. So first up, we have my favorite, which is the Majestic Unicorn. If you read through the rule books, you'll learn that unicorns really like gummy bears and cotton candy. And I think this unicorn is the epitome of what a unicorn would look like if it ate cotton candy all the time. Then we also have the, let me find it. Come on. Yep. Got some reference cards in the wrong spot there. Come on. Okay, the other option is the golden unicorn. So when you find both of these in your stable at one point, you automatically will win the game. There are some other creatures that you might encounter in the forest that could be both beneficial or negative, or originally negative and then turn beneficial. For example, you might find these dwarves. And dwarves are really cool. Them and elves, if you happen to have 3 or more of, you actually get an extra like bonus action kind of thing that relates to them when you activate their abilities. And then there are the evil creatures, like the werewolf or the ogre. Initially, when you have a werewolf or an ogre in your stable, bad things happen to you. But collect extra of them, and you'll actually be able to turn those bad things into negative effects for other players or positive effects for yourself. So it has a really cool option to be able to kind of mess around with your opponents a little bit while also helping yourself. Especially if an opponent plays something that's negative on your turn, you might even be able to turn it into a positive by the time your turn is over. So to get started, we shuffle the cards up, and then we're going to deal 6 cards out to every player. Sorry, I'm a terrible shuffler. Usually I use a card shuffler, but I just don't have one on me. So bear with my unfortunate shuffling skills. All right. So I'm going to set this up for player 1 over here, player 2 over here. So we're just going to deal out 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 6, 6. So this is going to be our forest deck. This is what we're going to be adventuring through to try to find our magical unicorns. So first up, player 1 is going to go. They're going to look at their hand here. Ooh, we're lucky. We already have one of the unicorns we're looking for. We also have some magic. We have some potions. We have some other mythical beings. So to start our turn off, we are going to pick a card. And then we're going to decide what we want to do. So here, we're going to look at kind of our different abilities. Our dwarf is going to allow us to do some pretty cool things. If we have a dwarf in our stable, when we activate on our turn, we're actually going to be able to play an additional mythical being card. So that might be a good option for us. Our elf, however, would let us, if we activate, if we have 1 or more elves, we can pick 1 card per elf that we have with a max of 2. We also have some cool potions. However, those are not particularly helpful at this point as there are no things that we're trying to remove or stop from another player's stable currently. So we might just hold on to those. So we're going to start by playing this dwarf into our stable, and then we're going to activate. So activate means that we're able to play another card. So we're going to play our elf. Our elf does not activate at this point as it just entered our stable. However, it will be there for future turns. So now, if we had more than 7 cards, we would discard down to 7 before passing it on, but we only have 5, so we're going to stop right there. So now it's player 2's turn. Let's see what they have. So they have the other unicorn. They also have some unicorn food. They have another potion, some magic, a werewolf, a unicorn thief, and an elf. So they're going to start by picking a card. We got another potion. And we're going to look and see what might be most helpful to us. So if we play a werewolf, what we're able to do here is if 1 or more werewolves are in your stable, discard a non-werewolf mythical being from your stable. So obviously we wouldn't want to put this on our own stable. However, I might look and say, all right, player 1, you have 2 different cards going on right now. There's a possibility you're even going to play a 3rd creature by the next turn. We might want to stop you from doing that. In which case, if we play this werewolf into player 1's stable, when player 1 activates on their next turn, guess what? They're going to have to activate that werewolf as well. So they could choose to do that. Now, player 1 might not be happy about this werewolf option. So let's see. We have a card in our hand that says Halt. Halt allows you to stop a person from playing a card, and that card goes to the discard pile. So player 1 might use this Halt card to discard the werewolf prior to it even entering their stable. Now, even though our card was discarded, we don't get a chance to play another creature for player 2. So player 2 is going to look and see what they have. So they have a discarded magical being from any stable, move a mythical being from one player's stable to another player's stable. So that might actually be helpful for us because our opponent has some options right now. We have an elf. If we can get 3 elves, then we have the ability to use that extra elf bonus that I was talking about earlier. So we're going to use that potion, and we're going to kind of take this elf. And now that we have a creature in our stable, we're going to see, all right, we used our potion, we used our creature, do we want to use any magic? So this magic is when a player is trying to have a magical unicorn enter their stable. That wouldn't apply. So right now, the only last action that we can choose to take is to activate. So we're going to activate, and since we have 1 or more elves in our stable, we get to pick 1 card from the forest for each elf that we have. So we're going to pick 1 card. And look, we have an elf. Player 1 doesn't know this, but now next turn, we're getting closer to being able to get that 3 elf bonus that we really want. So now we have 6 cards in our hand, and our turn is going to be over. So we're going to go back to player 1 now. Player 1 is going to start by picking their card. All right, player 1 is pretty happy. We have a elf option and a dwarf option. So what we're going to do first is we're going to play that elf. And now we also have a unicorn potion. So we're going to play that, and we're going to take player 2's elf. And now we're going to activate. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to activate these elves. You can activate your creatures in whatever order you would like. So what we're going to do here is activate the elves first to see what we get before we activate our dwarf that would allow us to play another creature. Because we might pick up a creature that we'd be more interested in playing than the other dwarf that we have in our hand. Or the unicorn that we have in our hand. So let's see what we got. So we got a Majestic Unicorn and an Ogre. So now we have a couple options. With this dwarf, we cannot play a unicorn currently. However, if we were able to get 3 dwarves in our stable at one point, we can play any amount of mythical beings, including the unicorn. So right now, we have both of the unicorns we're looking for in our hand. So we could choose to either play that dwarf and try to get toward our 3 dwarves, or we could choose to play this ogre on our opponent. Actually, nope, we can't play it on our opponent because you can only add it to your own stable. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this dwarf. So now we have 2 dwarves. If we can get 1 more dwarf, we'll be able to win the game nice and quick. And again, we're going to hold on to our mythical magical potion at this point. So at this point, we're going to end our turn. We don't need to discard. We only have 4 cards, and player 2 is going to be up. Player 2's stable is looking a little lacking, but not to worry. There's lots of ways to change that. So player 2 might say, all right, I noticed you have a lot of things going on over there. I don't like that you have 2 dwarves, because I know if you get another dwarf, if you happen to have both the unicorns, you could win the game on that turn, and there's not too much I can do about it. So player 2 is going to play some poisonous mushrooms, and we are going to discard one of player 1's dwarves. Now, player 2 is going to play an elf, because that will let us pick some more cards, and that's always helpful. And then we're going to activate our elf, pick a card, and look, now we have a potential 3rd elf, as long as our first elf doesn't get stolen again. And we're going to end our turn. So now, player 1 is going to be up. We're going to, once again, pick a card. We have an extra Majestic Unicorn now. So now we have a choice. We could choose to try to fake out our opponent here and play a Majestic Unicorn, assuming that there's a lot of cards, they'll probably be able to ditch it some way before we get the Golden Unicorn. But hopefully that might flush out our their discard option, so we could really play the real Majestic Unicorn on a future turn. Or we could play the Ogre. So for all intents and purposes, let's play the Majestic Unicorn so you can see how that works. So we're going to play a Majestic Unicorn, and we're going to say player 2 did not like that. Player 2 says, nope, you're not playing this, and they're going to play the Unicorn Thief. So you play this when a unicorn's entering the stable, block that magical unicorn from entering that stable, and add it to your stable instead. So player 2 steals our Majestic Unicorn. So now we're going back to player 1 over here. So we played an option, and we can't do any other things right now because our only other choice here is we also have a Unicorn Thief, and we have some more creatures. We can only play 1 creature per turn. So we're going to activate. So we're going to pick 2 cards, And we are going to use our dwarf. So our dwarf will let us play a creature. So we could try to play this golden unicorn right now. But there's a good possibility that if we play this, it might even get stolen before we get to our next turn. So we're going to err on the side of caution, and we're going to play the Majestic Unicorn, hoping that our opponent will not steal it because they already have a Majestic Unicorn of their own. So now if we look at our hands here, we have one Majestic Unicorn. We do have a Unicorn Thief, so if the other player tries to play a Golden Unicorn, we would actually be able to steal that from them and win the game since we have a Majestic Unicorn in our stable. We also have a halt option, meaning that if we try to play the Golden Unicorn in the future, or they try to play a Golden Unicorn and we want to stop it, we have some abilities to kind of work with there. Now, we have less than 5 cards. We're going to end their turn, and player 2 is going to go. Alright, so player 2 is going to pick a card. They have some unicorn food. We do love unicorn food. So we're actually going to do something pretty fun here. We're going to play an elf. Then we're going to play that unicorn food, and we're going to steal the elf from our opponent. Because the unicorn food lets us steal a mythical being from one player's stable and add it to our own stable. And now we're going to activate. So now what happens, because we have 3 or more elves in our stable, I get to search the forest deck for a magical unicorn, reveal it, and add it to my hand, and then shuffle the forest deck. So now I'm going to search that deck for the golden unicorn that I am looking for, because I'm really hoping that I might be able to win this. So let's see. All right, we got a golden unicorn. We're going to add that to our hand, and then we're going to mix the deck back up a little bit. And then, even though we activated our mythical unicorn here, our majestic one, does not have any special ability, so it does not do anything else. So now we've already taken our added creature, so even though we have the golden unicorn, we can't do anything with it just yet. So our turn is going to be over, and we're going to go back to player 1. And player 1 is going to attempt to win the game right now by adding the golden unicorn to their stable. And player 2 is going to check and see, but I don't believe player 2 has anything to stop it. They do not, in which case player 1 is going to win the game. And it's that easy. It's nice, it's simple, it's really easy to pick up. One of my favorite things about this game is that there's only a handful of creatures that you really need to learn, but there's a lot of choice involved because there's only so few creatures. You don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out like what 30 different creatures do every time or which creatures you're going to be searching for. But because depending on how many of them you have, it increases kind of the special abilities. So like the more dwarves you have or the more elves you have, the better their power is. It really gives you like a choice whether you want to diversify and try for like multiple actions per turn when you activate, or if you want to try to make one action really strong. And it's a lot of fun to play with. The different potions really mix it up and allow you to kind of swipe things from people, particularly at higher player counts. It works really well because there's just a lot more choice in terms of what you're able to take from your different opponents. Something that I didn't get to show you in this one, but I do want to just do a mock scenario, is what the kind of originally negative cards that can turn into positives are. So I'm just going to pretend player 1 didn't just win the game, and instead they chose to play this ogre on player 2. So the ogre says, if 1 or more ogres are in your stable, discard 2 cards from your hand. However, if 2 or more ogres are in your stable, choose any player to discard 2 cards from their hand. So pretend the game isn't over yet. We only have 1 unicorn. So we played that ogre. Our turn's now over. And player 2 is going to pick to start their turn. Alright, so now player 2 says, alright, I want to actually activate my abilities here. They can activate them in whatever order they want. So our elf here, let's pretend they only have 2 elves, so they're going to pick 2 cards rather than searching for a unicorn. They actually get to pick 2 cards, and what they're hoping for right now is that they might get another ogre, because since they can activate that afterward, if they're able to get a second ogre, then, well, in this case, they're not playing it right away, but if they were able to get a second ogre, say on a future turn, they would be able to have, like, the other person discard 2 cards. Or if you're playing with multiple people, they can pick which person gets to discard 2 cards. Whereas in this case, I picked my 2 cards, but now I have to discard 2. So I would have the other players just randomly pick 2 cards from my hand, hope they're not the ones that I wanted to use, and then carry on with it. But I really enjoy that these potentially negative cards can turn into positives. I think it's something a lot of take that games don't really do. It's like usually whatever's negative is just negative. And I like that this has the option to kind of turn it into a positive, because I think specifically with like younger gamers, it can help teach them a little bit about take that without making everything feel so bad when something gets played on them. Because it might be bad for a turn or two, but there's a good chance that you can turn that negative into a pretty strong positive later in the game. So if you can kind of keep that ogre there, hunt for a second ogre, you can use that to start getting rid of cards from other people's hands, which is a really awesome kind of power to be able to have, considering a lot of games don't allow you to do that. It's just kind of whatever's negative is negative, and that's it. So that's something I really enjoyed in this game. So some other things that we really liked, the art is really cute. I really enjoy the Majestic Unicorn. I'm going to hold it up closer so you can really appreciate it. It's definitely one of my favorites. It definitely looks like it lives on the diet of cotton candy and gummy bears that the game talks about. But I enjoy overall that Magical Unicorn Quest was easy to pick up, easy to learn. It's nice and portable. The entire box is pretty small, so it's easy to throw in a bag and kind of just take with you on the go. It's easy to teach people, so if you're looking for like a good filler game in between like heavier games, it's nice and quick. You can warm people up for game nights. And it's great for people that aren't into super heavy gaming as well. Good for family game nights, especially when you're trying to teach people that take that element. I think it's kind of cool. There's sort of like almost a little bit of engine building involved as well, in terms of you're trying to collect like the dwarves or the elves to make sure the extra bonus actions are able to happen. So if you can get enough creatures in your stable that do things every turn, you have the ability to kind of take extra actions and work on picking more cards, things like that. And you really kind of, the ultimate goal is to get through the deck. You're trying to search this deck for the cards that you're really looking for. So trying to kind of have some hand management, some deck management, all come into play here. But overall, it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. And I think that this Kickstarter is going to be awesome. And I hope that you will consider supporting them. And if you have questions, please feel free to comment and let us know. And we're happy to answer anything involving the gameplay. But definitely, like, good, lighthearted game, lots of fun, would absolutely recommend. Thank you for checking out our video. As always, if you're looking for more reviews, check out www.pudgycatgames.com. We post there, as well as on Board Game Geek. And be sure to check out our Instagram for lots of photos for the various games that we play and review. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!